The new My Hero Academia chapter has confirmed both Bakugo's death and his new second ability, just as we predicted. I will explain to you what this ability most likely is. And we'll also talk about how Bakugo's death might have confirmed the time travel theory of the second use of One For All. If you end up liking this video, consider subscribing. Please enjoy this video. Let's go! The new My Hero Academia chapter 362 starts seconds after the end of the last chapter with Tamaki preparing his attack. He concentrates and fires a huge plasma cannon. You can see the beam reach miles beyond the barrier. It's certainly one of the greatest techniques in the entire series and possibly one of the most powerful. But All For One wouldn't be the main villain if this attack even scratched Shigaraki. This shows quite clearly how strong All For One actually is. If such an attack wouldn't even hurt him, then even though his transformation isn't even complete, he's already nearly immortal. When all seemed lost, Bakugo finally stands up, suddenly moving at an insane speed. So fast, not even Shigaraki can keep up with his new improved body. Bakugo's eyes have the effect of a cluster explosion, just as we predicted. Everything about this new chapter seems to confirm our theory that Bakugo's explosion may have caused a side effect in Bakugo's body, where Bakugo basically gained a second ability, so that his perceptions are greatly sharpened and he may even improve his physical abilities. I have explained to you that all the micro explosions we have seen in the last chapter could be a form of his cluster technique, affecting his whole body after he learned to concentrate and control these micro explosions in his whole body, which then could have caused this new ability due to a physical effect caused by all these micro explosions, which then could explain his strange behavior when he muttered Shigaraki's movement. I have also explained that at the moment when Shigaraki hurts Bakugo's arm, Bakugo most likely tried to use his quirk even though his arms were unable to do so, which was the reason for his new ability. Bakugo most likely tried to cause his explosion with his whole body, which then created these micro explosions. This was also the moment when Bakugo suddenly looked shocked at Shigaraki, and then had this weird vision that Shigaraki was going to kill him just before he appeared to wake up from a dream. Shortly after that, he started acting strangely, as if he was seeing something that others couldn't see, as if he's in some kind of trance. The editor's note underlined this possibility and indicated that Bakugo can perceive something with his eyes that others cannot. We have assumed that Bakugo either gets a sharpened sense, for example by perceiving time more slowly, or simply gets a better reaction time, or perhaps can even look into the future a bit. Maybe because he can make certain predictions based on the body movements of his opponents, which he perceives as slowed down, which then corresponds in a way to a look into the future, not based on time, but on analytical calculations based on Bakugo's enhanced perception. We base this assumption on the fact that Bakugo muttered such strange things when he observed Shigaraki's movements, which was a hint that Bakugo might have some kind of mental awakening. We theorized that these micro explosions could also be happening on or in his eyes, perhaps even in his brain, which could be causing this effect, altering his perception, which could explain why he appeared to be in a trance. Many people have said that Bakugo was just doing what Deku always did, which was to analyze his opponents. I mentioned this possibility, but in combination with the new power-up Bakugo now has, which then gives a more effective result. In a way, he was probably inspired by Deku at that moment, but only after his new ability awakened. All For One doesn't understand why he feels unease even if he's not fighting a one-for-all user. This clearly shows that Bakugo has finally accomplished what he always needed to do to either surpass One For All or at least be on the same level, thus keeping up with Deku and truly being his rival. With his explosion quirk, it was just a delusional goal that he pursued without any realistic chance. We've always told you that Bakugo will awaken an ability that goes far beyond explosions, because that's the only way Bakugo will be able to compete with Deku. And now that is exactly what has happened. When All For One was thinking about why he feels so uneasy facing Bakugo, he suddenly remembered the second use of One For All, and suddenly went on the attack. Based on the leaks, it seems like One For All is seriously afraid of Bakugo and is trying to get rid of him as soon as possible before Bakugo goes too far with his new ability, or rather develops this ability further. The first time in My Hero Academia, All For One is actually nervous and afraid against an opponent, and it's Bakugo. That's crazy. With this revelation, our theory is that Bakugo is indeed somewhat connected to the second use of One For All might be true. It's actually very obvious if you just look at the second use of One For All and Bakugo. But it's also so obvious that the majority of the My Hero Academia fanbase started to believe that it's a bait. But now the new chapter has provided this new clue that we can no longer ignore. The second user of One For All has banned Deku from using his quirk because it's not what it used to be, but has turned into a very special and unique ability. Apparently it's so special that Deku can't just use it whenever he wants. If we go back to the moment when the second user of One For All stopped Deku before he activated his quirk, we can see that the reason Deku wanted to activate this quirk was because he was too slow when he tried to reach the battle against Shigaraki. He used all his quirks to the maximum possible and all that was left to exceed his limits was the quirk of the second user of One For All. If we now compare Bakugou's new ability, we can see that he has an immense speed increase. If we assume that the second user of One For All has the same ability in some way, then it makes sense why Deku would want to use this ability, since it would allow him to get to Shigaraki faster. But why didn't the second user allow Deku to use it? Is it perhaps dangerous for the user of this quirk? Could this be the reason why Bakugo might have even died? Let's continue with the leaks and see what exactly happens. I give the mic to Yami, have fun.
After One For All remembers the second user, he goes on the attack. Suddenly, Bakugo finds himself in a white room, facing All Might's ghost or something like that. Bakugo immediately understands what's going on. His heart has stopped and he's lying on the floor dead. The end of a hero who had the chance to become the greatest of all time. But is it really the end? Of course not. Horikoshi will activate the plot armor reverse cut. Okay guys, let's be serious. Bakugo is not going to die. I mean, if he does, then Horikoshi has the biggest balls in the business.
I got that big ball energy.
Something about Bakugo's death is very suspicious. It's not really clear from the leaks why Bakugo died. Even if All For One used an attack, it is very likely that Bakugo actually surpassed All For One in his current state. At least, the unfinished stage of Shigaraki and All For One before they merge. It is possible that Bakugo would have been able to dodge this attack with his immense speed and sharpened awareness by using his new cluster technique. But every time we see something like this in anime and manga, when a character uses a new power that increases their physical and mental abilities, it comes with a high risk and price. Maybe what happened to Bakugo was caused by himself. Maybe it's a heart attack. Something about his ability might have been just too much for Bakugo's body. So, the result of the quirk singularity, which then could also explain why the second user of One For All only allows Deku to use this quirk when there is no other way out. Another possibility is the time travel theory, which says that Bakugo and the second user of All For One are one and the same person. They literally look like each other, it's undeniable. They use the same equipment, they have the same personality. The second user has a scar on his face, and Bakugo is now badly injured on his face, which could lead to a similar scar. Both Bakugo and the second user have awakened a new ability with their quirk that has nothing to do with their original purpose. And both abilities could be very dangerous to use. The second user prevented Deku from using this ability, and Bakugo might have died using it. Bakugo mumbled Shigaraki's techniques, as if he could see a little into the future, or at least had some kind of increased awareness, as we predicted in our theory. I think we all can agree that this theory, as ridiculous and far-fetched as it may sound, can no longer be ignored. We know that a certain amount of speed can make time travel possible. So maybe Bakugo somehow traveled back in time due to high speed and could then become the second user of One For All and recreate the path of One For All so that One For All becomes stronger in the near future to defeat All For One. Maybe that is what the second user of One For All has already done, and now Bakugo is facing the same task. But by doing so, he would change the future and thus recreate time. In the newly created future, the Bakugo we knew would then take the position of the second user of One For All. But he would not be the same person as the second user of One For All we knew so far. So the present we know would be erased together with the second user of All For One, and Bakugo would be the only person from the previous timeline and the new second user of One For All. The only reason Bakugo would take this route is if he doesn't trust Deku to be able to defeat All For One. But knowing Bakugo, he trusts Deku and would create the same path of One For All that eventually led to Deku. If this is the case, then the second user of One For All will no longer exist as we know him. Instead, from the next chapter on, the Bakugo we know will take the position of the second user of One For All, but the timeline will not be replaced. Everything will be the same, because Bakugo didn't change anything. He knows that Deku will defeat All For One. Of course, there are many other possibilities. Perhaps Bakugo will be able to travel into the future again instead of creating a new path if this would not change the future, due to the fact that Bakugo may have decided not to become the second user. If all this has nothing to do with time travel, then it must be a fake death. I just can't imagine Bakugo dying. Either his quirk will somehow bring him back to life, and if he does have a connection to the second user of One For All, maybe there will be some kind of causality that could bring him back to life in some way. Or maybe Eri will bring Bakugo back to life if the heroes use a spatial quirk to get Eri to Bakugo as quickly as possible so she can rewind his body. There is no way that Bakugo will be just gone. Let me know in the comments below what you think about it. That's it for today, folks. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to smash the like button, and if you're new to our channel, make sure you subscribe with the notification bell turned on. See you guys in the next video. Yami out.